No one at the mansion noticed the girl at first. Music floated across the garden, glasses clinked, and laughter echoed beneath glowing chandeliers hung over marble paths. It was one of those parties where everything looked perfect on the surface. But outside the iron gates stood a child who did not belong in that world. She was small, maybe 7 years old, her jacket too thin for the cold evening air. Her shoes were worn down, the soles barely holding together. She had been standing there longer than anyone realized, gripping the bars of the gate like they were the only thing keeping her upright. She wasn't watching the guests. She was watching one woman. In the center of the garden stood a pregnant woman in an elegant dress, one hand resting on her stomach as her husband smiled beside her. The man was known everywhere, a billionaire, powerful, untouchable. To everyone else, this was a celebration. To the girl at the gate, it was a disaster waiting to happen. A server approached the pregnant woman with a silver tray. 3 tall glasses of bright orange juice caught the light as they were lifted toward her. The girl's chest tightened. She saw something no one else did. Her heart began pounding so hard it hurt. Before she could stop herself, she screamed, "Don't drink that!" The music stopped. Every head turned. Security guards rushed toward the gate as the girl's voice rang out again, louder and more desperate. "Please, don't drink the juice! They put something in it!" The pregnant woman froze, the glass hovering inches from her lips. Her husband's smile vanished instantly. For a moment, no one moved. Then the billionaire acted. He knocked the tray from the server's hands. Glass shattered across the marble floor. Juice spilled everywhere. Silence fell over the party. The little girl stood shaking behind the gate, surrounded now by guards, her eyes locked on the man she had just interrupted. The billionaire stared back at her, his heart racing. She hadn't just yelled randomly. She knew exactly which glass to stop, and that was when he realized something was terribly wrong. The guards reached the gate and grabbed the girl by the arms. "Enough," one of them snapped. "You can't be here." She didn't fight. She didn't scream. She only kept her eyes on the billionaire. "Sir," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "I saw it. I saw who did it." That stopped him cold. "Let her go," the billionaire ordered. The guards hesitated. No one spoke to them like that without consequences, but something in his tone made them release her immediately. He stepped closer to the gate, studying her face. She looked exhausted, hungry, but her eyes were sharp, too sharp for a child her age. "You're saying someone poisoned the drink?" he asked quietly. She nodded. "The middle glass. That one was meant for the lady with the babies." A chill ran through the crowd. Behind him, the pregnant woman clutched his arm. "Alexander," she whispered. "What if she's right?" His father's voice cut through the tension. "This is ridiculous," his older man said sharply. "She's a street kid, probably looking for attention." But Alexander barely heard him. He was watching the girl. "How do you know it was poisoned?" he asked quietly. The girl swallowed. "It was sparkling. Not like juice sparkles, like dust. My mom taught me what that means." Her words landed harder than shouting ever could. A doctor who had been attending the party stepped forward. "If there's even a chance she's right, we need to test the remains." Security staff gathered the broken glass fragments. Minutes later, the doctor's face went pale. "There's arsenic," he said, "enough to kill an adult, and enough to kill unborn children." Gasps rippled through the garden. The pregnant woman collapsed into a chair, shaking. Alexander dropped to his knees in front of her, holding her hands, his mind spinning. Someone had tried to murder his wife and his unborn children. He stood up slowly and turned back toward the girl. She was crying now. Silent tears slid down her dirty cheeks, but she didn't look afraid. She looked relieved. "You saved them," Alexander said, his voice breaking. That was when he noticed it. Her eyes. Dark brown with flecks of gold near the edges. He had seen those eyes before, years ago, on a woman he had loved and lost. His breath caught in his throat. "What's your name?" he asked. "Emma," she whispered. Emma Chen. The name hit him like a punch to the chest. Chen. His father stiffened. Emma wiped her face with her sleeve. My mom said, if I ever found you, you'd know. The world seemed to tilt. Found me? Alexander asked slowly. She nodded. She said my dad was a good man. He just didn't know I existed. The garden was dead silent now. Alexander's father stepped forward, his face tight with anger. This is insane. She's lying. But Alexander couldn't take his eyes off the girl. How old are you? She asked. 7. 7 years. 7 years ago, a woman named Maria had vanished from his life without explanation. His knees nearly gave out. Bring her inside. Now. No, his father snapped. You are not letting this child into... I said, now. For the first time in his life, Alexander didn't care who heard him defy his father. As Emma was led into the mansion, she looked up at him and whispered something that made his blood run cold. The man who did it, she said softly, he's still here, and he's scared you're going to find out. They brought Emma into a quiet study away from the guests. The noise of the party faded behind thick wooden doors, replaced by a heavy silence that pressed down on everyone in the room. Alexander sat across from the girl, his hands clasped tightly together. His wife rested on the couch nearby, one arm around her stomach, still shaken. Emma sat on the edge of a large chair, her feet dangling, her jacket zipped all the way up as if it were armor. You said your mother told you about me, Alexander said gently. Tell me everything. She nodded. My mom worked all the time, Emma began. She said she had to. She cleaned offices at night. During the day, she worked wherever she could. She was always tired, but she never complained. Alexander felt something tighten in his chest. She showed me pictures of you, Emma continued, from newspapers. She said you were kind. She said you didn't leave us. You were taken away from us. His breath caught. Taken away how? He asked. She hesitated, then reached into her jacket pocket. I was supposed to give you this. From the pocket, she pulled out a worn envelope. The paper was creased, the edges soft from being handled too many times. His name was written on the front, in handwriting he would never forget. Alexander's hands began to shake. This is from my mom, Emma whispered. She told me to keep it safe. She said only give it to you if something bad happened. The room felt too small. He took the envelope slowly, like it might shatter if he moved too fast. He broke the seal and unfolded the letter. As he read, his face drained of color. The letter explained everything. How his father had found Maria when she was pregnant, how she had been offered money to disappear, how she had been threatened when she refused, how she was told Alexander would lose everything if she ever told him the truth. Emma watched his expression change line by line. Tears slid down his face before he could stop them. She never stopped loving you, Emma said softly. She said that every day. Alexander covered his mouth, unable to breathe. 7 years. 7 years his daughter had grown up without him. 7 years he had believed a lie. He looked up at Emma, his voice barely a whisper. I didn't know. I swear to you, I didn't know. She stepped off the chair and walked toward him. I know, she said simply. That broke him. He pulled her into his arms and held her tightly, his shoulders shaking as he cried for the daughter he never knew he had and the woman he never got to protect. The door creaked open. His father stood there, his expression cold and controlled. So, the older man said, you've read her story. Story? Alexander snapped, standing up. You destroyed my life. You threatened her. You stole my child. I protected this family, his father replied flatly. That woman was a liability, and now this child is too. Emma stiffened in Alexander's arms. That's when she whispered something that made his blood turn to ice. "He's lying," she said quietly, "and he did worse things than you know." Alexander stared at his father. "What did you do to her?" he demanded. His father smiled thinly. "Cancer is a tragic thing, but sometimes tragedy can be arranged." The words hit like a gunshot. Emma buried her face against Alexander's chest. That was the moment he understood. This wasn't just about inheritance. This was about a man who would kill his own blood to keep control. And now Emma was in danger. Alexander tightened his grip around his daughter and made a silent promise. No one would ever hurt her again, not even his own father. The room felt charged, like a storm about to break. Alexander stood between Emma and his father, his body angled protectively, his hands still shaking with rage. "You're going to explain everything," Alexander said, "right now." His father let out a slow breath, almost amused. "You always were emotional," he replied. "That's why you were never meant to run this empire." Before Alexander could respond, Emma tugged gently at his sleeve. "There's proof," she whispered. "Mama made sure." She slipped out of his arms and carefully unzipped her jacket. Her small fingers found a loose seam near the lining. With quiet concentration, she pulled something free. A tiny metal key dropped into her palm. "My mom sewed it there," Emma said. "She said it was the truth." Alexander stared at the key. "Where does it go?" he asked. "A bank box," Emma replied. "She said if anything happened, you'd know what to do." For the first time, his father's expression cracked. "That proves nothing," the older man snapped. "A dead woman's paranoia won't stand up in court." "You're wrong," Alexander said coldly, "because you just admitted something far worse." Before his father could respond, a voice came from the speaker on the desk. "We heard everything." Alexander's wife had quietly placed her phone on the table. On the line was a detective. "And so did my entire team," the voice continued. "We're outside. Do not move." Sirens began to wail in the distance. The older man's face twisted with anger. "You think this ends here?" he snarled. "You think I worked alone?" Another figure stepped forward from the hallway. Alexander's brother. He had been silent until now, watching, calculating. "You always were the favorite," his brother said with a humorless smile, "even when you didn't deserve it." Emma's grip tightened on Alexander's hand. "He has a weapon, and he's going to try to take me." Alexander's heart slammed against his ribs. "Put your hands where I can see them," Alexander ordered. His brother laughed softly. "You really believe the police can protect you from what's coming?" The front door of the mansion exploded inward. Police flooded the halls, shouting, footsteps, chaos. Alexander moved without thinking. He scooped Emma up and ran toward the window as officers poured into the room. A gunshot rang out. Glass shattered behind them. Emma clung to him, her voice calm despite everything. "He's aiming wrong. He's scared." Officers tackled Alexander's brother on the floor. His father was forced to his knees, handcuffs snapping shut around his wrists. As they were dragged away, the older man locked eyes with Alexander. "This family was built on control, and you just destroyed it." Alexander didn't respond. He looked down at Emma instead. She had saved his wife. She had saved his children. And now she had exposed a legacy of lies that lasted generations. As police lights flashed through the windows, Alexander held his daughter close and felt something unexpected. Relief. For the first time in his life, the truth was finally free. The mansion was silent. The guests were gone. The lights were dimmed. Police tape lined the hallways where power once ruled. Alexander sat on the edge of the bed in the guest room, watching Emma sleep. For the first time in years, she was safe, curled under clean blankets, her jacket folded neatly on a chair beside her. She refused to let it go. He understood why. That jacket had carried her through hunger, fear, and loneliness. It had protected the truth when no one else would. His wife stood in the doorway, one hand resting on her stomach. "She hasn't let go of your hand all night," she said softly. Alexander looked down. Emma's fingers were still wrapped around his. "She doesn't have to anymore," he replied. "I'm here now." The investigation moved fast. Evidence from the safety deposit box exposed everything: money trails, threats, names of people who had vanished after challenging the family's power. The empire that had once seemed untouchable collapsed in weeks. And in the middle of it all stood a little girl who had refused to stay silent. Social workers arrived the next day. Emma shrank back when she saw them. "I don't want to go back," she whispered. "I won't run this time, but please don't make me." Alexander knelt in front of her. "No one is taking you anywhere," he said. "You're my daughter." Her eyes widened. "You mean, really?" "Yes," he said without hesitation. "Forever." Tears filled her eyes as she threw her arms around his neck. "I knew you'd come. Mama said you would." Months later, the mansion felt different. Not quieter, warmer. Emma's laughter echoed through halls that once held only ambition and fear. The twins were born healthy, and Emma never left their side, watching over them like a tiny guardian. Alexander rebuilt his life around something he had never known he was missing: family. One evening, Emma sat beside him on the porch watching the sunset. "Daddy?" she asked. "Yes, Butterfly?" She smiled at the nickname her mother used to call her. "I don't see bad things the same way anymore," she said. "Now I see what comes after." He wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "And what's that?" "People being brave and telling the truth, even when it's scary." Alexander kissed the top of her head, tears burning his eyes, because a poor little girl had saved his family, and in doing so, she had given him something far more valuable than power or wealth: a second chance. A year later, the gates of the mansion no longer felt like a barrier. They stood open most days. Alexander watched from the window as Emma played in the garden with her little brother and sister. The twins toddled after her, laughing as she guided them carefully, always watching, always protecting. She still had that instinct, but now it wasn't sharpened by fear. It was guided by love. The trial had ended months earlier. The verdict was final. The truth, once buried under money and influence, had come out piece by piece. Names were exposed. Power was stripped away. People who believed themselves untouchable were led away in handcuffs. Alexander testified calmly, clearly. Emma never had to. She had already done more than enough. Instead, she sat in the courtroom gallery holding Isabella's hand, swinging her feet quietly, unaware that history was shifting because of her courage. The family fortune changed too. Alexander shut down divisions built on greed and secrecy and redirected everything toward something new: a foundation, one focused on protecting children who fell through cracks no one wanted to see. Emma helped name it. "The Butterfly House," she said, "because broken wings can still learn to fly." On opening day, Emma stood beside Alexander as reporters asked questions. "Why did you speak up that night?" one of them asked. Emma thought for a moment. "Because if you see something bad and stay quiet," she said, "it doesn't stop being bad. It just gets bigger." That answer spread everywhere, but fame never touched her. She still liked simple things: pancakes on Sundays, drawing pictures for the twins, leaving sandwiches in the park for kids who reminded her of who she used to be. One evening, Alexander found her sitting on the porch, holding her mother's old photo. "Do you miss her?" he asked. Emma nodded. "Every day." He sat beside her. But I think she can see us, Emma added, and I think she's happy. She wanted me to be safe, and now I am. Alexander swallowed hard and pulled her close. You saved us, he said quietly. Emma shook her head. No, she replied. We saved each other. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the house behind them glowed with warmth instead of shadows. What began as a warning at a gate became the truth that shattered a cruel legacy, and from that truth something better was born. A family, a future, and a little girl who proved that even the smallest voice can change everything.